OpTic Chicago then eliminated from Champs. They go out in extremely disappointing fashion, ending a season that never really had many highlights anyway, with losses against the New York Subliners and Toronto Ultra. Coming up against Ultra was always going to be difficult for OpTic. They've lost to them every time they've played them since Stage 2. In fact, OpTic have beaten every single team except for Ultra since Stage 2, truly proving that Insight is their boogeyman this year. If they ever were going to have a chance of taking this series, they needed to come out and start hot, win the hard point. OpTic are negative in S&D heavily against Toronto Ultra, 1-6, and they were 2-3 in the control, so there wasn't much to lean on if this series got extended out. They had to come out and win the hard point. They were positive, and it just went up in smoke a little bit. And it was, unfortunately, a couple of key moments in this map that I'm going to break down for you here. Initially, it looked good, right? I'd spoken several times about how the money hills hadn't been fantastic. And P2, they were great at getting in, breaking it, and setting up well for it. They did a fantastic job. But towards the end of that first rotation, start of second rotation, they were looking good, and it just comes to the P4, P5, P1, that entire cycle through where it all falls down and leaves them chasing the rest of the game. Coming to that P4 then, those northern containers, the OpTic were in possession of and needing some arriving support. It's actually Insight, surprise, surprise, who gets in through wood down that bottom side of the map. Now, him being there is a problem for two different reasons. The first one is he's got a clear line of sight of anyone trying to get across the map to support the hill from OpTic, as you see happen when Dashy and co have to take gunfights. And the fact is as well, because they're having to take those gunfights, not only are they struggling to get themselves across to support P4, but in the back of their mind they're thinking, well, if Insight is still alive here, we could spawn out, we could be flipped, we could lose a key spawn for the next big hill, which is a bit of a sleeper money hill, is P5, and they end up just completely capitulating here and losing 4 in the ensuing gunfights. Because it all turns into a bit of chaos, a bit of a mess really, there's then no setup in place for OpTic when P5 breaks. And the thing is here, they have nothing supporting the bottom of plane, they also have nothing watching out over front, and it's Cammy who goes huge. MVP nominated Cammy gets himself in to that hill and actually hops over through the back. And again, this causes issues. This just means that OpTic are never really set up. They can never get themselves in place. And I think here Envoy makes an awful call. He's on the hill. He is stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit, but because he gets off the hill and the gunfights don't go OpTic's way, this means that his teammates spawn the other side of the map, and just ends up being that they're just completely overwhelmed, outnumbered, and they lose a key hill. And the problem is from there is that P5 is still being hit by OpTic when the rotation comes in from Toronto. They win those gunfights, they get the kills, and they take the next hill as well. And at this point, OpTic are all at sea because they've struggled 3 consecutive hills in a row, with Toronto just kind of dictating exactly how they want this to play out. OpTic go from a comfortable position to chasing the game completely. In fact, over these 3 hills, Toronto rack up 98 points to OpTic's 27. And if you'd put a freeze frame at the start of this sequence at that point in P4 where they have those containers and said who comes out on top between P4, 5 and 1, you would have backed OpTic the whole way. And it's just a catalogue of errors, tiny issues, cracks that they're just leaving open for players to exploit. And a team that has taken advantage of OpTic when they have looked great, we're always going to take advantage of them when they are leaving those kind of gaps. And I really feel for this OpTic side, especially Scump, who had a fantastic champs and to be honest has been great throughout the years. Lots of retirement comments and conversations. I don't think King is anywhere near that yet. And I do truly believe that he comes back in Vanguard and does something special. But do we see this OpTic team stick, or do we see them break? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as for this, I will see you in the next one, which will be Champs Day 3. And we're getting towards that massive grand final.